So with preseason being 5 to 6 weeks away, I think it's about that time that I drop my prediction video for the season. I'm going to try to go through these pretty quick. So with that being said, let's get right into it. Right off the bat, week 1, we're at New England. The Texans haven't been able to beat New England since like about 2009. So they're pretty overdue for a win. And the Patriots, they're on a downward spiral. They no longer have many weapons. Amendola's gone. Brandon Cooks is gone. Julian Edelman will be suspended for this game. Tom Brady's an old man. And their defense is a mess. It's going to be worse than it was last year. They have no pass rushers. Even though Malcolm Butler was mediocre last year, he's gone. So now they only have one corner. They did add Duke Dawson, and I say a win, but that's only going to do so much for them. So I'm predicting a big win for the Texans at New England. The Texans will go up into New England and shock the world. They will stomp on the Patriots. They're going to blow them out. Week 2, the Texans travel to Tennessee. It's not going to be 57-14 because it's going to be really hard to score that many points. But the Texans just match up really, really well with Tennessee. I don't see Tennessee being able to keep up with Deshaun Watson. I don't see the Titans' bad receivers being able to expose our bad secondary. So I'm predicting another win here. A pretty big win too. Week 3, the Texans come home for their home opener against the Giants. Now the Giants, they're a team that can definitely expose the holes in the secondary. Odell Beckham, they got Shepard, they got Evan Ingram, and the newly acquired Saquon Barkley. So they have a pretty stacked offense. Their offensive line is still pretty questionable, but I think their weapons are good enough to be able to match that. I think Eli Manning's smart enough to be able to match that. Now, Deshaun Watson can score on anyone. Giants defense is probably middle of the pack. They're not that great, but they're not bad either. However, I think the Texans lose this game. Why? Well, after starting the season on the road, you take on and beat the team you just couldn't beat for the past decade, New England. You finally beat them. You're so hyped up. You go to Tennessee, you beat your divisional rival, and you come back home and overlook this Giants team that was 3-13 last year, which will probably be not that much better than last year, if we're being honest. So the Texans drop one to the Giants. Week 4, the Texans travel to Indianapolis to take on the Colts. Should I even say more? It is a blowout win. The Texans bounce back from that loss against the Giants. Week 5, the Texans come back home to Dallas to play against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. The Texans match up pretty well against the Cowboys, so I'm giving the Texans a win here. Week 6, still in Houston, the Texans take on the Buffalo Bills. The Bills don't have a quarterback. They're a bad team. The Texans win this game. Week 7, the Texans travel to Jacksonville. Now this game, this is going to be a hard-fought game. Who wins? It's going to be tough to determine because I think these teams are meant to have good games against each other. Even though last year says otherwise, this year will be different. These games will be close. They will be dogfights. I'm taking, and I know you guys are going to hate me for this, I'm taking the Jaguars in this game. I feel like, despite our offensive line being improved, I think this defensive front will still be too much for the Texans' offensive line and will overpower them. So the Texans drop one at Jacksonville. Week 8, Thursday Night Football, they play Miami. Now, Miami is one of the worst teams in the league. The Texans should blow them out. But because it is a Thursday Night Football game, because it's 4 days right after the Texans had a hard-fought battle with Jacksonville, this game will be close. But in the end, Deshaun Watson will come through, and the Texans will beat Miami. Week 9, the Texans travel to Denver. Now, Denver has two pretty good wide receivers, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. Case Keenum is better than Trevor Siemian, Osweiler, or Paxton Lynch ever were. So, Denver definitely has the offense that can somewhat expose this secondary. But the thing that really worries me, Von Miller and Chubb versus our offensive tackles. Deshaun Watson's probably going to be running for his life in this game. Our defense, because we're in Denver, will get tired quicker, and I think Denver takes this one from us. If this was in Houston, the Texans probably win, but since it's in Denver, that Denver home field advantage is something else. So, the Texans lose their third game of the season at week 9. They sit at 6-3 going into the bye week. Week 11, the Texans play at Washington, and despite Washington being this kind of middle of the pack team, I just don't see them being able to compete with the Texans. They really have no offensive weapons. Their defense is kind of middle of the pack, so I think the Texans take this one easily. Week 12, they come back home for Tennessee. The Texans are going to blow them out on Monday Night Football again. Week 13, in Houston, the Texans take on the Browns. Yes, the Browns did get better players, but Hugh Jackson is still the coach, so as long as Hugh Jackson is the coach, this team is going to suck. The Texans easily beat the Browns. Week 14, still in Houston, the Texans take on the Colts. We're going to blow them out because the Colts are a terrible team. Week 15, the Texans travel to New York. Now this one's pretty interesting. The Jets are a team that fights really hard. I'll give them that. When you think the Jets are a team that you can just kind of push over because their record indicates they're bad, nah. Their head coach, Todd Bowles, he keeps them fighting no matter what. So this game's going to be pretty close, but I still see Deshaun Watson beating these guys. Week 16 at Philadelphia. Now, this can either go two ways. One, Philly's already clinched, so the Texans can play their backups. Or two, it's going to be an amazing shootout against Carson Wentz and Deshaun Watson. This game can honestly go either way because of the quarterbacks, but I'm taking Philly because Philly just has talent all across the board. Everywhere they have talent. The Texans still have holes, but Philly is probably the only roster in the NFL. Maybe you can make an argument for the Vikings, but Philly has pretty much no holes. So the Texans drop their fourth game of the season. Week 17 versus Jacksonville. The Texans at this point with 11 wins, they've already clinched the division. The Texans play their backups because at this point, with 4 losses, there is pretty much no way they can get a first round bye or that number 1 seed. So the Texans decide to play their backups, and Jacksonville beats the Texans' backups. So at the end of the season, the Texans finish with an 11-5 record. They sweep the Titans, they sweep the Colts, but get swept by the Jaguars. One game which was meaningless, and one which was fought really hard. The Texans finally beat New England. The Texans get back into the playoffs, and Bill O'Brien finally gets a double-digit win season. So, with that being said, comment down below your own predictions. Comment down your opinions on my predictions. And be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.